a few other issues. And of course, one of them is something that's in the headlines today. I'll let you go first, Governor Johnson. If you guys can both keep the answers just a little bit shorter so we can get to more of these topics. I first want to ask about the Congressional Supercommittee. This is not something we learned about in civics class in high school. Tell us, is this constitutional?
Well, it's three branches of government, and again, these are always constitutional issues, and will be, and they get sorted out. But all three branches constantly are trying to push the envelope. I mean, that's the reality. That's not going to change. And as President of the United States, heading up the executive, I'm going to do everything I can to push my agenda because it's the right agenda. It's what needs to take place. I'm going to do everything I can to possibly do that. Congress feels the same way. Courts make decisions the same way. Is it right? It's the reality, and it's really not going to change. I mean, Congress, in its authority, has deemed that this is okay, and that's the envelope that they're pushing on other envelopes, but they push the envelopes.
Governor Roemer, I actually want to go to another topic with you on this one. Let's talk illegal immigration here. This is something that's in the Constitution. The borders have to be protected by the United States, by the federal government. How would you handle this situation constitutionally?
I think America is shirking its constitutional duty. We have an administration that's leaving it up to the individual states. That's not what the Constitution says. The Constitution says clearly that it's the responsibility of the Congress of the United States of America. They're just too scared to do it. I'll quote a New Hampshire boy, Robert Frost. Remember the poem he wrote? Good fences make good neighbors. You'll start by sealing the border. Oh, they'll say it can't be done. It'll cost too much money. When you have this much overrun, when you have a nation that has prostrated itself like this nation has, when you have a nation built on a constitution that is filled with 12 million illegal aliens, it is not fair to the American citizen to shirk our duty. Furthermore, Paul, furthermore, you know who it works against the most? Mexican Americans, citizens of America, who now walk down the streets in Arizona and can get stopped by a policeman. You know why? They look like they're Mexican. What kind of nation do we live in? It's the responsibility of the president, if it's Gary, and his Congress to do comprehensive immigration.
Governor Johnson, I'll let you talk on immigration, and if you could specifically talk about the Arizona immigration law, how would you feel? How do you feel about that?
Well, I am absolutely opposed to the fence. As Republicans, we're going to build a $200 billion fence. Look, draw a comparison here to building a fence around Manchester. Is that going to keep anybody in or out of Manchester if you live in Manchester? Come on, it's not going to work. And it's back to the analogy of if it's a 10-foot wall, it's going to be an 11-foot ladder. It's just not going to work. It would be a waste of money, and I'm speaking as a border governor. What the United States government needs to do is make it as easy as possible for somebody that wants to come into this country and work to get a work visa. Not a green card, not citizenship, but a work visa that would entail a background check and a social security card that applicable taxes get paid. If we enact the fair tax, taxes aren't even an issue because nobody's going to avoid paying the fair tax. Arizona passes their law. I think they have every right to pass laws that they think are going to improve. I'm really states' rights. So I think they have every right to pass the legislation that they passed. I disagree with the legislation completely. I would have vetoed the legislation. It is, in my opinion, leading to discrimination in Arizona. And let me tell you, I have a hotel interest in Tempe, Arizona. And after 9/11, hotels in this country, and it's a really nice hotel. After 9/11, the hotel industry kind of took a dive, and then it began this recovery. And let me tell you, I have interest in other hotels in other states. And in Arizona, this was the hotel in Arizona, and then Arizona passed its law. And I will tell you, this is the trend line when it comes to any businesses having any conventions in Arizona whatsoever. So the notion that this didn't have an economic impact on Arizona, I will tell you that it does. I would not have supported that legislation. Back to the 11 million illegal immigrants that are here in this country. This is a much more complex issue than it's being given credit for. There are millions of Mexican Americans that came across the border 20, 30 years ago that are still illegal, but that have had families whose families have had families who are leading citizens in the community in New Mexico, and they're actually illegal immigrants. So it's not as cut and dry as you might think. And one of the leading causes of the 11 million illegal immigrants was that Reagan, when he set up his amnesty period in the 80s, he coupled that with putting government in charge of quotas. And that was a breakdown from day one. Government matching up business with people that need jobs. Get government out of that business completely. Get government in the business of issuing work visas for anybody that wants to come into this country and work. Will Mexicans stand in line if it's a moving line to get a work visa? Absolutely. And then I have to touch on drugs and drug prohibition when it comes to violence around the borders. Every single candidate running for president of the United States right now is talking about border violence and combating that border violence with more guns, as opposed to addressing the real issue, which is getting rid of the prohibition of drugs. In this case, I advocate legalizing marijuana. Legalize marijuana, and arguably 75% of the border violence with Mexico goes away, that being the estimate of the drug cartel's activities that are engaged in the marijuana trade. 40,000 deaths over the last 4 years. These are disputes that are being played out with guns rather than the courts. Let's get these disputes in the courts. Don't underestimate what a big, big problem this is and how easily it could be addressed if we would just look to the lessons of alcohol prohibition and what we've already gone through in this country.
All right, governors, thank you so much. Governor Gary Johnson, Governor Roemer.
GrokTV.